What is going on, Only Playbook fans? It has been a month of it since we've taken a little bit of a hiatus. A lot going on in like personal life. Shashot, 1/3 of the podcast, got officially hitched and married. And it's the slowest part of the off season, right? So only so much you can talk about, but we are officially probably 1 month away from, the start of all of your fantasy football drafts, which means rankings, all that good stuff is what's going to be coming a flurry here the next month or so before drafts start. And today, Chauvin and I want to kick off with, 3 players each of us feel like you must draft coming out of your fantasy football draft. So we each have 3 players. Want to highlight this. We'll make it short and sweet. Chauvin, how are you feeling?
I'm feeling good, man. It's good to get back in it. You're right. It's been a month, but I haven't been not looking at football. We've been kind of, tracking all the things that are going on off season, new people to draft. I even did a couple of mock drafts on Sleeper as well. So it's been interesting to see the guys that were going in the middle rounds or that are going higher, like first or second round this year as opposed to last year. So we're on our A game and we're going to bring the heat, starting now.
Yeah, I mean, it's as easy as looking at ADP and not seeing Justin Jefferson as the consensus first player like you were last year, right? With the uncertainty at quarterback, all of a sudden you're looking at Justin Jefferson with some value at like 7th or 8th ADP. So definitely some changes from last season. And NFL moves so fast that if you take a month off, I almost debated being like, should we play the game of where all of these new faces are currently playing on the teams for? Because I feel like I would forget a lot of them. So
yeah,
that almost felt like it. Yeah, that could have been a good exercise just to give us a refresher, but who cares about refreshers? We're just going to raw dog it live on the podcast without remembering who plays for what team. So without further ado, Chauvin, let's kick things off. I will kick us off with my first player. 3 players, each of us. I got a quarterback, a running back, and a receiver. Starting with the quarterback that I feel you must leave all of your fantasy football drafts with is none other than Anthony Richardson, quarterback for the Colts. Obviously, everybody knows the story, was superior for the first 4 weeks last season, got hurt, ended up missing the whole season. Right now, Anthony Richardson's ADP as in terms of a quarterback is the 5th or 6th quarterback usually drafted off the board. Now, the value here, I think, is tremendous, right? I mean, he's 5th or 6th off the board, and his upside is quarterback 1. I mean, he's got the legs, he's got the arm. My biggest thing is he's running an offense ran by Shane Steichen, who was the reason that Jalen Hurts became the quarterback and the fantasy quarterback that he was, right? I mean, number 3, number 2, number 3. I think there was a year he was number 9, but maximizing his rushing ability, being efficient when he's rushing, creating open schemes for the passing offense. So I think that is really going to attribute to Anthony Richardson having all of the weapons at his disposal. You talk about the weapons. I mean, we looked at last year, Michael Pittman Jr. was wide receiver 1. Josh Downs was wide receiver 2. They have Jonathan Taylor, obviously, in the backfield, but they also drafted A.D. Mitchell, who fell to them at 52. Absolute steal, in my opinion, really big value. Now you have a 3-headed monster there with the 3 receivers, with Anthony Richardson, with the running back, Jonathan Taylor. So weapons are aplenty. I think that offense, that team is not playing in the toughest divisions either. So that division to me feels pretty wide open for the Colts. So I think that barring injury, which is something that, we, as much as in the fantasy world we want to talk about, it's so hard to predict. And I always err on the side of not drafting based on predicting injury, right? Because you can't really predict injury. So if you take injury aside, I think Anthony Richardson as a quarterback has the ability to be the quarterback 1 using his legs, right? I mean, using his legs, he's got a cannon for an arm, he's got the weapons, and he's in an offensive system that's going to be super friendly and adaptable to the quarterback. So quarterback 5 or 6 off the board. I mean, I did the exercise in my head of 5 or 6 quarterbacks that I feel would have the rushing upside alone of Anthony Richardson, and I couldn't think of 5 or 6 at all. Like, I mean, can you think of 5 or 6 NFL quarterbacks right now that would have rushing upside higher than Anthony Richardson besides maybe Lamar Jackson?
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, I certainly think there are some quarterbacks that can get there, like Jaden Daniels, for example. He's a rookie quarterback that certainly you can consider as a rushing threat that he brings in. But I have nothing like I think you're spot on with the Anthony Richardson as the 5th quarterback, maybe even the 6th quarterback that you can get, a rushing upside that he has. I mean, just last year, right? You talk about the new system with Shane Steichen, but even last year in the first 4 games, he looked so good. And if it wasn't for the injury, he would have been a great quarterback to have. So, he's just got to know to go down. When there's a guy coming at you, middle linebacker trying to tackle you, go down, don't get tackled. And if he can get that part down and stay on the field, then yeah, this guy could be a league winner for you for sure.
why wouldn't Shane Steichen literally steal from Jalen Hurts' playbook with the quarterback sneak, right? I mean, obviously we understand that the center plays a huge role in that, but Anthony Richardson is bigger, faster. I won't argue stronger because Jalen Hurts squats like 600 pounds, but you would imagine Anthony Richardson is pretty damn strong, right? So with that size, with him being such a physical specimen, why would they not utilize that quarterback sneak, that goal line sneak? So I think touchdowns, rushing touchdowns alone will give this guy such a good floor, a top 10 floor for damn sure, barring injuries. So I am really high on Anthony Richardson. I think you have to leave your draft with Anthony Richardson as your quarterback. Shovit, who do you feel like from a quarterback perspective you want people to leave their drafts with?
Yeah, solid pick on Anthony Richardson. For me, I'm looking at Kyler Murray. Okay, he is right now a tier 2 quarterback, the 9th ranked quarterback from Fantasy Pros. And I think that, his injury concerns were definitely an issue last year, but he played half of the season. And I think there's a lot of upside with the fact that, one, he's a dual threat quarterback, can pass and can run the ball. And he has an improved offense, right? Marvin Harrison Jr. that they drafted. They also have Trey McBride. I think Michael Wilson will have a step up in this offense as well. So I think a lot of things are playing well for Kyler Murray to get to that elite level. And, when I'm drafting quarterbacks, I want to fill my roster up with running backs, receivers, and tight ends that can get me points. And I want to look later on the rounds to get a quarterback that can have, so I can have a complete team. So in order for me to get a complete team, I'm looking at these later round quarterbacks, and Kyler Murray sticks out to me like a sore needle. I think this is a guy that you definitely need to keep in track of. Guys like Josh Allen, Jalen Hurts, Patrick Mahomes, people are drafting all these quarterbacks that are well known or that have proven to be successful. I think Kyler Murray this year has tremendous upside, and for later rounds, he's going to be a steal in this draft.
Do you know what his ADP right now is? Where, as in terms of quarterbacks, where is he being drafted, or where is he being projected to be drafted? If it's outside the top 10 in terms of quarterbacks, then that is an absolute steal.
He's number 9 as far as ranks from the quarterback, but let's see. His ADP, I think best is 34 and the worst is 90.
Wow. Pretty wide range. Huh?
Now, and if you talk about roster percentage, and I don't know how they calculate this, like Yahoo has 70% roster percentage and ESPN has 88%. Now, if you're talking about an elite quarterback and he's not in the 90s, like 99, I mean, what's really going on here, right? And this is a guy that needs to be rostered, I think, in every single draft. There's no way Kyler Murray should be on the bench. Or
yeah, I wonder if they're basing that off of last year where he got dropped, or where he probably got dropped after he got hurt and was out for season. But no, I'm with you. Dual threat running quarterbacks should all be rostered. It does not matter who they are. Second quarterback on your bench, anybody that has rushing upside. We've seen the shift in fantasy football where you have rushing quarterbacks that are not as good quarterbacks than passing quarterbacks, but are better fantasy quarterbacks, right? So we have to continue to separate the football with the fantasy football. Rushing quarterbacks bring a lot more value in fantasy football just because they're not the superior quarterback from a quarterback play perspective. Doesn't really mean anything in fantasy terms. So I'm absolutely with you. I love Kyler Murray. Trey McBride is my number 1 tight end on the year. So spoilers for when we get to tight end rankings. I think with Marvin Harrison Jr. there now, that offense should absolutely click. Not to mention drafting Trey Benson, who I think is going to take over for James Conner, and he can catch the ball out of the backfield as well, which should help Kyler Murray. Running back, my running back that I love, I think I've talked about him in the offseason a lot, so I don't know if this is me regurgitating stuff to you, Shovit, but Zach Moss, my man crush Monday, man crush every day, basically. I feel like I can't stop talking about him. Right now, going as the running back 25 on average. This seems like a no-brainer, okay? And I understand what you're going to say. I understand what the naysayers are going to say. They're going to be like, oh, Chase Brown. Well, let me tell you a little bit about Chase Brown. Last year, okay, Joe Mixon was averaging less than 4 yards a carry. So incredibly inefficient, like incredibly inefficient. We know that. That's literally the name of his game is Inefficient Joe. He gets a lot of carries, doesn't get a lot of yards, but he's their goal line back and everything. So my thought process is if you have this electric backup that everybody is raving about, and you have a starter that is as inefficient a runner as running backs come, there is no reason why Chase Brown did not get more opportunities last year. Chase Brown last year had only played more than 18 offensive snaps, or did not actually play more than 18 offensive snaps in any given game, right? Not a single game where he played more than 18 offensive snaps. And then you look at that to red zone or important carries or touches. In the red zone, Joe Mixon had 59 touches to Chase Brown 7 touches. And Joe Mixon is not a Hall of Famer. He's not an amazing running back. He's just a above average, good running back that can do the job. And that is exactly what Zach Moss is to me. Zach Moss comes in this year at age 26, a year younger than Joe Mixon. He's coming off of a awesome year with the Colts where, he was spelling time with Jonathan Taylor when Jonathan Taylor was hurting and he was carrying the load. You look at some of the other things with Joe Mixon in the last 6 seasons, 5 of the 6 seasons, Joe Mixon has finished RB12 or better. So he's a top 12 fantasy running back in 5 of the last 6 seasons playing for this Bengals offense. So you're telling me Zach Moss, a year younger, pretty much identical in terms of similar how they play. I wouldn't expect any less production from Zach Moss than I would Joe Mixon when he's already incredibly inefficient. You're telling me this guy can't come in here and automatically beat his ADP of RB25 when he's clearly going to be the RB1. There hasn't been enough like fire out of training camp about Chase Brown yet. So to me, this feels like what Chase Brown felt like last year. Yeah, he's electric. He's the second fastest ball carrier last year behind DK Metcalf when he had the football in his hands. But again, why does he not have the football in his hands more often if he's that electric, right? There's a reason for that. Zach Moss, again, there were talks when Jonathan Taylor was coming back that Zach Moss deserved to start because he was so good. And Jonathan Taylor is a superior running back to Joe Mixon. So I truly feel like Zach Moss is going to come in here, absolutely smash his ADP, running back ADP of the 25th ranked running back on the board. No, this guy's closer to a top 12 finish this year. So I think Zach Moss should be somebody that you are targeting. If you're going 0 RB, he is definitely somebody that you're targeting later on. Otherwise, if you need to reach for a running back that is going to get workload, is going to touch the football, to me, that is Zach Moss.
Yeah, I love that. I think that the Bengals are going to run the ball, and just the fact that you mentioned all the Joe Mixon stats being inefficient as he is gives the upside to Zach Moss, and he's proven, with the Colts when Jonathan Taylor was out, like you mentioned. I would just say, I would add on to that you could be right about Zach Moss, and but Chase Brown can also have a good year. There's a chance that but you don't know. You have all the stats, but Chase Brown could have a good year as well. He's fast, yeah. He's electric, and he's kind of like Tony Pollard a little bit, in that sense. So I would almost say that if you do get Zach Moss, try to get Chase Brown later on, just in case if you're wrong about that, or if it doesn't work out in that favor, whatever, with Zach Moss, with age being the issue, whatever, at least you have a backup in Chase Brown. So, but yeah, I'm solid, someone to go out for, and then have an insurance just in case.
Yeah, I mean, we talk all the time about running backs that, how late can we get a running back that we expect to have, 60% of the workload at least, right? Like, who's going to be the guy? And right now, maybe outside of third downs, even that, because Zach Moss is such a good pass protector, there's nothing that tells me that Zach Moss won't be on the field for at least 60% of all snaps. Like you said, Chase Brown could just come out like out of a cannon and be incredibly electric and win that job. But I still think Chase Brown's not a true RB1 where he's not going to manage a 20 carry workload. That's just not who he is. He's more of a change of pace, spell. He's going to be the lightning to somebody's thunder, where you're used to a certain guy that's, bulldozing. And then all of a sudden Chase Brown comes in and he's electric and fast and the defense isn't expecting it. So, I could be wrong. Like you said, there's a world where Chase Brown breaks out, but I feel like we've been waiting for this Chase Brown breakout for a couple of years now. And Joe Mixon has parted the sea, letting Chase Brown break out and take over his workload if Chase Brown, in fact, could do that. And he hasn't yet. So that's the only reservation that I have. And the reality of running backs is their life expectancy is so low. I mean, Chase Brown's now been in the league, 3 years, and he's still a backup, right? So he's almost peaking in terms of age clip for running backs, and he hasn't even seen more than 18 offensive snaps in any given football game. So there is fear there. That I'm still sticking to my guns. I've seen what Zach Moss can do. There's a reason they paid him 2 years, $8 million. They brought him in, if nothing, to be a 50-50 split share with Chase Brown. But even then, I'm still leaning Zach Moss. So Zach Moss, leave your drafting that man. Shove it. Who you got?
Cool. Yeah, my next player is going to be a receiver. This is a receiver that I like really well, plays for the Green Bay Packers, Christian Watson. I think his talent is immaculate, right? He's an end zone threat, can definitely extend the field, deep bombs. Jordan Love loves to throw deep bombs, and I think that there's a world where Christian Watson, as a number one receiver, can have a breakout year this year. So the one concern someone may have is a quarterback concern, right? Jordan Love, do you really believe in him? I think he's a real deal. I think the Green Bay Packers have found their franchise quarterback, and what he showed me last year, making that playoff run, beating the Dallas Cowboys, I think that he is a quarterback that is going to produce and get you good results as far as fantasy goes, and he's going to help out his team as well. And I think the Packers in a whole are doing really good as far as their offense goes, the additions that they made this year as well. And I think that his biggest down, like the thing that concerns you about Christian Watson, is his hamstring, right? But here we're finding out that he and his team, medical team, have figured out that one of his hamstrings is weaker or smaller than the other hamstring. So he's working on keeping them at par, making them pretty much the same so that he doesn't have these hamstring injuries. So I think the fact that if he can stay on the field, he's going to command that wide receiver one target share, the red zone threat, that's all there for Watson. And I think given the fact that he will be available in the middle rounds, he's a good flyer option that you can look at getting, given that, you have Amon-Ra St. Brown, all these AJ Browns, and all these guys that are like going ahead of Christian Watson when he's still going to be available, hopefully in the 4th and 5th round, and you got to go out and get him.
Yeah, my only fear with Christian Watson is not just the injury, because again, I try not to predict injuries, but it's just a crowded receiver room. I think Jayden Reed has emerged as the guy that you want the ball in his hands as often as possible, because he's not just a vertical threat, right? He can get the end arounds, he can get the screen passes and all that. And then even guys like Romeo Doubs and Dontavian Wicks, who came onto the scene last year, there's just a lot of names that have been productive at different times, to where I don't know who the clear number one is. Now, when Christian Watson was healthy a couple years back, when he first came onto the scene, he was the clear number one, but he does have limitations in his game because, again, the injuries, and I still don't think he can run a full route tree. I think he's just really, really fast and can take the top off the defense, but there are other running receivers on that team that I trust more, like Jayden Reed, to run multiple routes and get the ball underneath and stuff. But that's not to say that you can't have multiple receivers be fantasy relevant. Christian Watson is electric. I still tag him boom or bust, simply because I don't ever see him being like, you're going to get him 12 targets and 10 catches for 110 yards, right? He's going to be like the 7 targets, 5 catches for 150 yards and 2 touchdowns or something like that, because you're going to throw him a lot of bombs and over the top passes. So that is somebody that's going to win you weeks, right? They can be a week winner, but they also come with some bust potential on any given week as well. So definitely something to consider, but where the value is, I do like Christian Watson.
I do want to highlight the fact that it is a crowded room. Now, I think that there are 2 guys that are going to emerge from this crowded room. And I think number 1 is going to be Christian Watson. And I think number 2 is going to be Dontavian Wicks. I think the last 3 games, he showed me that he can be a solid, reliable target in that receiving core. And Romeo Doubs has been there, done that. And I feel like he just hasn't been consistent enough. And the Jayden Reed factor, the fact that he's scoring like touchdowns after touchdowns, 5 touchdowns in the span of 5 weeks, I think that's going to come down, get back to regression, or to closer to the mean, I guess, right? So I don't think that's sustainable. So as far as the receivers that should emerge from this, I think it's either Wicks or Watson, and I'm betting on Watson, as far as being a league winner. And yeah.
Damn. I will say that's ballsy. I would love to make a Only Playbook podcast bet with you that I think Jayden Reed has a better season than Christian Watson.
I would take that bet. Now, the only thing that's going to limit that obviously is injuries, right?
Right?
Yeah.
So
I would take that bet with you, 100%. A water bet, whatever bet you want to do.
All right, man.
I think that Christian Watson will emerge as the best receiver on this Packers offense.
So what's the bet? We want to do fantasy points? Who will have more fantasy points at the end of the year? Watson or Reed, or what's the...
I think that's fair. Yeah. The most fantasy points at the end of the year. Or, all right. However high they finish, who finishes higher, fantasy points is the same thing. Yeah.
Yeah. So, all right, that's fair. I think Jayden Reed will finish higher, and you think Christian Watson will finish higher. Fair enough.
Yep.
I love it. That's the thing. They have multiple receivers. They have people that can step into that role and like be the guy. I think we expected that to be Watson, but like you said, injuries derailed him. It's just an opportunity for these other guys to also step up and be that guy, but we'll see. We'll see what the training camp battle looks like. But it is intriguing for the Green Bay Packers, and it's just more weapons for Jordan Love, which sucks if you're a Vikings fan. My last player, Shovit, my third player that you absolutely better. If you don't have this guy in your team in our draft, Shovit, I will come after you like a absolute dog. It is DK Metcalf, wide receiver for the Seahawks. A projected ADP right now as a wide receiver 21. Now, that is exactly what he finished last year. Year before that, wide receiver 16. Year before that, wide receiver 14. Year before that, wide receiver 7. Doesn't it feel like DK Metcalf's been in the league for a minute now?
It does. Yeah. How
He's
long has he been in the league?
26 years old.
Oh, wow.
He's 26 years old. And this is a guy, we want to talk about fast. He's faster than most people. You want to talk about big? He's bigger than most people. You want to talk about strong? He's stronger than most people. Now, here's the cherry on top. All throughout his first 4 or 5 years, we've constantly been like, why don't they throw the ball to DK Metcalf more? Why isn't he getting like double-digit targets? They need to figure out more creative ways to get him involved. Well, what are the camp rumors coming out, Shovit? Are that DK Metcalf will be used as a, quote, moving target. They are going to get him the ball in space. They're going to get him the ball in the slot. They're going to get him the ball while in motion. They are going to figure out ways to get him the football. Their new offensive coordinator, Ryan Grubb, was the ex-offensive coordinator for the Washington Huskies in college, who, if you remember, for the last 2 years have had one of the best offenses in all the country. Air out, all out passing offense. And what's kind of the similarities here is Washington operated with 3 awesome wide receivers, Rome Odunze, Jalen Polk, and Jalen McMillan. And now you come into this Seahawks offense, you got DK Metcalf, you got Tyler Lockett, and you got JSN. So similarly structured offenses, Ryan Grubb is going to know how to utilize this offense, how to get DK Metcalf the football like he did Rome Odunze. And I think this is the year where, again, think about it like this. He's projected right now as wide receiver. His ADP is wide receiver 21. Last year, on a pretty average DK Metcalf type year, like actually not average, his worst year of the last 4 years, he was wide receiver 21, exactly where his ADP currently lies. So you're telling me another year removed, new offensive coordinator, they've already come out in camp saying that they're going to use him a lot more. You're telling me he's not going to beat that ADP 21? I think you're crazy. I think DK Metcalf should be taken on all fantasy teams. You should absolutely draft him. He's going to smash that wide receiver 21 ADP.
Yeah, I think that's solid. You know, it's a little tough as a DK Metcalf owner when you saw him last year with the just not getting the ball. Like first quarter, he's doing well, 7 targets or something like that. First half, and then second half, he just doesn't show up, or like they don't target him enough. I hope that changes, and I hope you're right. And if that's the case, then yeah, DK Metcalf certainly a guy you need to get.
Bring us home. Who's your final guy?
My final guy is going to be from the Atlanta Falcons, Drake London, currently going as wide receiver 13. I think that he's going to be it's not that I think, he's going to be the primary receiver in this offense. And they just got Kirk Cousins as their quarterback, and he is accurate. Drake London, I think, has been a great receiver, but hasn't been great. And it's because his quarterbacks have been Mariota, have been Desmond Ridder, right? Tyler Heineke. And I think that is the reason why Drake London has not been able to break out. And this year, with Kirk Cousins as your quarterback, certainly has that potential. Red zone threat, 6'4", can run great routes. And, you know, they also got Zach Robinson, who was a coordinator or a player personnel for the Rams, and he is the offensive coordinator. Look at what they did with Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp and all those guys over there. If they can incorporate that into this Atlanta Falcons offense with Kirk Cousins leading the way here, I think the sky's the limit for Drake London. You've got to be excited to have him on your team.
It's an exciting time for the Falcons, like you said, because it's a quarterback that's actually competent compared to what they've had. I am excited about all Falcons this year. I'm excited about Kyle Pitts. I'm excited about Drake London. I'm very excited about Bijan Robinson in year 2. I think, again, just the addition of Kirk Cousins that has the ability on a play action to at least complete a pass down the field, where Mariota didn't necessarily have that, and Heineke didn't necessarily have that, and Ridder certainly didn't have that. I think it absolutely has to scare defenses. It's going to absolutely allow London to get open more. They signed Darnell Mooney, who, you know, he's not some crazy amazing player, but he's a big, you know, take the top off deep threat. So if he can do at least that, if he can at least keep the defenses honest and have that extra safety cover him out there, then you have London and Pitts. Somebody's going to be running one-on-one. And so I do really, really like Drake London. My one fear, not a knock on Kirk, but the one thing that Kirk does not do, he does not throw very many 50-50 balls. What's Drake London really good at? He's good at going up and getting the 50-50 balls. Kirk is too conservative, brother. Hopefully Zach Robinson can coach that out of his brain, and he can at least feed the beast that is Drake London. But there's so much talent to love. It feels like he hasn't reached that potential because of the lack of quarterback play. So if there's a year to be bought in, it's absolutely this year.
If you think that Kirk doesn't like throwing 50-50 balls, what do you think was the percentage of Justin Jefferson catching that one-handed catch in fourth quarter? Was that like 10 and 90 or like 20-80?
100%. And you know why you remember that so vividly, Shovit? Because that's probably the one time in his entire career that he's thrown a 50-50 ball. Remember the 4th and 8 where he thought he shouldn't throw a 50-50 ball to Justin Jefferson with the season on the line, but he should check it down? Yeah, so there's another example of when he didn't do that, not just in a regular fourth quarter, fourth down game, with the season on the line. So yes, do I think in the first quarter of second week of the game, he's going to throw 50-50 balls to Drake London? Hell no, I don't. But that doesn't mean that I don't think Drake London's going to have a good fantasy year. So
I didn't mean to trigger you there.
No, not at all. Not at all. But I got the answers for all that, brother. There's a reason you remember that. That's the one time you've ever seen him do it. That's literally the one time you've ever seen him do it. Yeah. And that was more so the catch than the pass. But anyways, good job, Kirk, for throwing the football up to JJ. But yes, those are our 3 players each that you must leave your fantasy football drafts drafting. Obviously, that sounds a lot easier than it is, but there's a reason we love these players. There's a reason that we're putting them on this list. It's not necessarily like they're going to be wide receiver 1, quarterback 1, running back 1, but based on where their projected ADP is for their position, I wholeheartedly believe all 3 of my guys are going to absolutely smash their ADP for their positional rankings.
Yeah, and I think for me, Kyler Murray and Christian Watson are definitely lower in kind of the, I guess, pecking order, if you want to call it. Maybe get drafted a little bit later. But Drake London could be drafted in the first or second, not maybe the first or second round, right? But round, yeah. I think that in the second round with Drake London, he is a guy that you can feel comfortable getting. And it's like, oh, I'm getting Drake London. No, you're getting Drake London in the Atlanta Falcons, new offense with Kirk Cousins as your quarterback. So you got to be excited about that.
Yep, absolutely. It feels good to be back and talk football. We are back officially, so weekly episodes. Again, like I said, I think we have 1 month before fantasy drafts begin. So starting next week, I think we're just going to start putting out positional rankings. We'll go quarterbacks, running backs, receivers, and tight ends. So all of the premier positions. Hopefully we get Shishot back next week, so we have a full house moving forward. And again, if you're watching on YouTube, thank you so much. Sorry about the hiatus, but we are back. Hit the like, hit the subscribe, help spread the word. If you're listening, you can listen to us anywhere you get your podcast platform. Socials, follow us on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok at The Only Playbook. I am Sweetcard. That's my Twitter handle right there. That is Shovit. We are The Only Playbook. We are so excited to be back. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. We will see you next week.